Hey guys, Andrew Berg here. This is part 5 of my Writing for Jazz Saxophone Section series. In this video, we're talking about 5-part harmonies, or 5-part voicings. But first, if you haven't watched parts 1 through 4 covering block voicing, drop 2 voicing, drop 2-4 voicing, and drop 3 voicing, I strongly recommend watching those first because I'm going to use a lot of the information when I'm doing this video right now. Alright, let's go. Okay, so as you see, we're going to be going through the melody of Pop Goes the Weasel again and writing a harmony for that. Okay, so first let's check out the chords. We're going to be using a 2-5-1 in the key of G major again. So just a quick reminder, those are the chords of A minor 7, D7, and G major 7. The chord tones for those, for the A minor 7, we have A, C, E, and G. For D7, we have D, F sharp, A, and C. And for G major 7, we have G, B, D, and F sharp. Okay, quick reminder of what these different voicings are and how we use them. Okay, so the first one to look at is block voicing. This one is going to be basically have the melody line in the top voice, and then each note below that is going to be the next chord tone lower than it. So, for example, in the A minor 7, this top one is going to be a G, so the next chord tone below that is going to be an E, followed by a C, followed by an A, and then this bottom voice is always going to be a double of the top voice, just down an octave. Okay, so for drop 2 voicing, it's almost the exact same. The only difference is that we're going to have the second voice down drop down an octave. So in this situation, that's going to be this E right here, drops down an octave right there, so now that's going to be in the bottom voice. For drop 2-4 voicing, it's very similar. We're going to be dropping down the second and the fourth voices down an octave. So that would be the E from right here, as well as the A. We're going to drop down an octave to be an E and an A. For drop 3 voicing, again very similar, we're going to be dropping down the third voice down an octave. So in this situation that would be the C gets dropped down right there. Okay, so each have their own different meanings and their own different reasons that you might use these voicings. For those, I recommend watching those individual videos about them just because there's too much to go over right now. One thing I do want to point out though is that in each one of these voicings, we have one note that's going to be the double of the melody line just down an octave. In block voicing, it's going to be the bottom voice. In drop 2 voicing and drop 3 voicing, it's going to be the second from the bottom voice, and that's that G right here. And in drop 2-4 voicing, it's going to be the third note from the bottom. I'm mentioning this because that's going to be the note that we're going to end up changing to go ahead and make this a 5-part harmony instead of just a 4-part harmony. Okay, let's actually arrange it now. First thing I'm going to do is copy down this melody down to each of the other lines. Okay, let's go ahead and write in the chords really quick. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go through this a little bit faster than I usually would because I've already covered each one of these different voicings in their own video. So I want to incorporate a lot of these different voicings, so here's what I'm going to do. These first 2 counts, so everything over the A minor 7, I'm going to be doing in drop 2 voicing. And the D7, or the next 2 counts, I'll be using drop 3 voicing, and then this last whole note right here in G major 7, I'm using drop 2-4 voicing. Alright, let's get started on this. So this is just 4-part harmonies now throughout. That means every single one of these is going to have only 4 different notes. We do have 5 voices, but there are going to be 4 different notes on them. What that means is that we always have one voice which is going to be doubling the top voice. So again, that would be this tenor 2 part for these first 4 counts, and then on this last one, the drop 2-4, this tenor 1 part. So now we're going to make this into a 5-part harmony. So we're going to be editing only those notes on this. Okay, and for that, I have a little cheat sheet that we can use. So available substitutions. Let's go ahead and start with the minor 7th chord, which is the A minor 7. So the minor 7th chord, you can substitute a 9 for the root, and you can substitute an 11 for the flat 3. So what does that mean? That means if the melody line is going to be on the root, or the 1 in this A minor 7, that means instead of doing an A, we could put a B instead. Now if we had it on the flat 3, which is the C, we can instead put it on the 11, which is D. So I'm going to bring that right over here. So A minor 7. Okay, so we did not mention the 7th at all, so the 7th is going to stay the same. This G right here, we're not going to touch, we're going to leave it as is. But now the second note is the A. So what we said is that if it's the root, or the A, it's the 1, that means we can substitute the 9th instead. So instead of this being on an A, all we're going to do is move this to a B instead. So effectively, we've turned this A minor 7 chord, for this one count right here, we've turned it into an A minor 9 chord instead. That allows us to have 5 different voicings, so we can have a 5-part harmony. Okay, now we're going to look at this drop 3 voicing right here. There's a couple things we have to take into consideration. So we're going to look at this D7 right here, so the dominant 7th chord. So for this one, we are saying that if the doubled voice is going to be the root of the chord, or the 1, we can substitute it for the 9th, just like we did for the minor 7th. We can also substitute that 1 for a flat 9 instead if we like that sound as well. The other option we have is substituting the 5th for the 13th of the chord. Okay, let's go ahead and put that in practice real quick. So first, let's go ahead and go through just looking at those ones. So again, we have the 1 or the 5 is what we're looking for. So the second note right here, the D, is going to be the 1. So that means this note right here, we can substitute it for an E or an E flat. I'm going to go ahead and put it as an E for right now. An E flat would be just as acceptable though. Okay, so that's the 9. And then this last note is also going to be a D. So we're going to take this note right here and make that an E. Okay, now there's one other thing I want to mention really quick on this dominant 7th chord. So this note right here, the B's, as well as the G right here, these are both what they call tensions. So that means these are not chord tones, these are extensions of the chord. So this is the 13th, this is the 11th. So with that, there's this other note right down here. If a melody is a tension, meaning a 9, 11, or a 13, a related chord tone or tension can be used instead of the doubled note. So what I mean by that is instead of this B right here being doubled right there, we can move this to a different chord tone or a different tension. A different tension would be an E or a G, and then a different chord tone could be anything from a D, F sharp, A, or C. So when I'm picking a different tension, I like to pick one that's not already represented in this chord. So in this situation, we have the D, F sharp, A, and then this B doubled. So if I was going to pick a chord tone, I would pick the C, since that one is not already represented in this chord. But first, let's go through the tensions really quick and see if there's any of those that we can use instead. So we already have this B, and we're already going to say that this is not going to be the note we want to use because we want to have this 5-part harmony. So we could go with the 9th instead. The 9th would be an E. So if we change these two notes to an E instead, it would look like this. That's not super ideal because now we're going to have 3 E's in a row. It's not going to flow very well with the rest of the section. The other option we have is to go with a G. So we don't want to go with this G right here because now we're going to be putting that above this 3rd voice, which is not going to sound very good. Other option we have is put it down here. Now we're going to have a 6th jump between these, which also is going to be really awkward to play on the instrument. So since we're not going to have a related tension, now let's look instead at having a related chord tone instead. Best option I see is putting it as the C. Because now this is a nice jump. It's the same as the rest of the sections we'll be playing, this 3rd right here. It's also going to flow nicely from this B into the C. So I think having this C right here for these two notes is the best possible option we have to have a completed 5-part harmony while also having it sound very natural. So now let's look at this G right here. G is the 11th of the chord. So for the G, we're going to look for any other related tensions or related chord tones. Since we already had a related chord tone, I'm going to see if I can find a tension that works instead. So since this G is the 11th, let's look at having it be the 9, for example. Okay, so this note right here, so I had it as the E. That doesn't really work very well. It doesn't flow with what the rest of the section is doing. The rest section is going to be going down in this interval, so having it go up and then all the way back down again is just not going to sound super great. What if we drop down the octave? Well, now we have 2 E's in a row, which again is not going to sound very good. It's not going to flow with what the rest section is doing. Okay, so getting rid of that idea. Other option we have is to look at the 13 of the chord. 13 of the chord is going to be the B. If I put it on the B, that kind of works. So now we have this C, E, C, and then drops down to the B, which is only a half step. Everyone else is going by at least a whole step, if not a third. But it is going in the right direction, and now we're able to have this related tension on here. So now this chord is going to have the 1, the 3, the 7, the 11, and the 13. It's going to be a very built-out chord. It's going to be a really cool sound, I think. All right, cool. Now let's go on to the last one, which is G major 7. So for this one, for the major 7th chords, if we have the root in the doubled voice, we can exchange it for the 9, just as the other two. Other option we have is if we have a 6, we can replace it for the 7th. If the lead voice is the root of the chord, or the 1, then we should change it to a major 6th chord instead. It gets a little complicated on the reasoning why, but basically if we have a major 7th, an octave below the root, we're going to have a minor 9 for that interval, which is a very dissonant interval, and it's not going to sound very good in this section. I'll go over that and other intervals that you should avoid in another video in the future. Okay, so let's look at this. So this lead line is on the root, which means that we might want to consider changing this instead of a G major 7 to a G major 6 chord instead. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. Change it to a G major 6 chord. And now if we're looking at this, in a drop 2-4 voicing, we dropped this note down. So instead of having this note be an F sharp now, have it be an E instead. Okay, so that fixed that problem. So now we don't have that minor 9th interval in there. Okay, now let's look at actually replacing out the G. So again, if it's the root, which it is, we're going to exchange it for the 9th instead. So for this note right here, it's the G. Instead of being G, we're going to move that to the 9th of the chord, which is A. Which means now the only notes that we have in this that are not going to be in a 5-part harmony are just going to be these first two right here, because there aren't any available substitutions that are going to work with what we're doing. And then every other note past that is going to be a 5-part harmony. All right, let's listen to it. Alright, cool. Thanks for watching. My name is Andrew Berg, and if you like this video and want to learn more about writing for a jazz saxophone section, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I post. One last thing.